There. And
I don't know what that's
thank you. Shabbat Shalom. What page are we on again?
69.
Shabbat Shalom. We turn to page 65. Please rise.
Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam asher natan לנו chivina lechadchim ben yom uben layla. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam shasani b'tzalmo. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam shasani bat chorin. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam malbish avrumihim. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam zokeh kefufim. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam shasali kol tzarki. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam hamechi mitzadei gaver. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam hanotein laya'eh.
Amen. We may be seated.
Uteninu hayom uv'chol yom, lechenu chesed urachamim b'einecha, u'beinecha ro'enu v'tikmalenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomer chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Ashenu shanachnu mashkinim la'arivim, erev v'boker yomrim pamayim b'chol yom, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Kadesh Shimcha Makdishei Shemecha, v'Kadesh Shimcha b'Olamecha, v'Vishuatecha Tarim v'Tagbiach Karneinu, Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh Shimcha b'Rabim.
Service continues on page 81.
Mizmor shechanukat habayit l'David armim Adonai. הפכת מספרי למחולי, פיתחת שקי ותזריני שמחה, למען יזמרך כבוד ולא יתום, אדוני אלוהי לעולם אותך.
Mourner's Kodesh, page 82 for those who are reciting. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba, v'yalmad yivrak kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman karim. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba v'larach v'olam v'amei amaya. Barach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kedusha. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. U'yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Sukkah de Zimra begins on page 83 with Baruch She'amar. Please rise.
Baruch She'amar v'haya olam, Baruch hu, Baruch HaZevreshit, Baruch Rav Yosef, Baruch Ozer Mekayim, Baruch Merachim ha'aretz, Baruch Merachim ha'briot, Baruch Meshalem Zachar Tov Le'av, Baruch Ha'la'ad v'kayam l'netzach, Baruch Pateh u'matzil, Baruch Shemo, Baruch יחיד חי העולמים, מלך משובח ומפרדה עד שמו הגדול, ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל בתשבחו.
We may be seated.
הודו לאדוני כי הוא בשמו, הודיעו בעמים עלילותיו שבלו. כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ונורא הוא על כל אלוהים, כי כל אלוהי העמים אלילים, באדוני שמיים עשה. הוד וחטא לפניו, עוז וחטא במקומו, אבו לאדוני. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו, וישתחוו לאדון רגליו קדושו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו, וישתחוו להר קודשו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. וכוח ומכפר בון ולא ישחית, והרבה לך השיבה פה ולא יאיר כל חמתו. אדוני. אדוני צבאות אשר המבטח לך, אדוני הושיע, המלך יעננו ביום קורנו. הושיע את עמך ברך את נחלתך, רים ונעשם עד העולם נפשך. אשריהם שככה לו, אשריהם שאדוני אלוהיו, ואני בחסדך בטחתי יגל ליבי בישועתך, אשיב על אדוני כי גמל עלי.
Service continues, page 91.
הללויה, הללו את שם אדוני, הללו עבדי אדוני שעומדים בבית אדוני. בית ישראל ברכו את אדוני, בית אהרון ברכו את אדוני, בית הלוי ברכו את אדוני, יראי אדוני ברכו את אדוני, ברוך אדוני מציון, שוכן ירושלים, hallelujah. Please rise, page 92. הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו. נותן נחם לכל בשר, כי לעולם חסדו, הודו לאל השמיים, כי לעולם חסדו. רננו צדיקים באדוני לישועים נאוות תהילה.
We are seated as we continue down 93.
כי לא ישמח ליבנו, כי בשם קדושו בטחנו, יהי חסדך אדוני עלינו, כאשר ייחלנו לך, מזמור של יום השבת תורות. עוד ינבום בשיבה, דשנים ברנים יהיו, להגיד כי אשר אדוני צורי ולא עוולתה פה. אדוני מלך כיות לבש אדוני עוז כי תזרח תיקון, תבל בל תלמוד. מקולות מים רבים אדיר משמרים, אדיר במרום אדוני, עדותיך נענו מאוד לביתך נאה בקודש, אדוני לאורך ימים. יהי כבוד אדוני לעולם, ישמח אדוני למעשיו ישנה. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כל חמתו, אדוני הושיע, המלך יעננו ביום קורנו. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלם. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך ימי את אביד עולם, הללויה. הללויה, הלי נפשי את אדוני, אכלה אדוני בחיי. אז ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. הללויה, כי טוב זמרה אלוהינו, כי נעים נאווה תהילה בוני ירושלים. מגיד דבריו ליעקב, חוקיו ומשפטיו לישראל, לא עשה כן לכל גוי, ומשפטים בל ידעום, הללויה. הללויה, הללו את אדוני מן השמיים, הללו במרומים, הללו. וירם קרן לימו, תחילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו, הללויה. הללויה, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, תהילתו בכה חסידים, ישמח ישראל. לאסור מלכיכם בזיקים, ונכבדיכם בחבלי ברזל, לעשות בהם משפט כתוב, הדרכו לכל חסידיו, הללויה. הללויה, הללו אל בקודשו, הללו בקרא עוזו. הללו, הללו, בצלצלי שמה. Hallelujah, hallelujah, בצלצלי תרועה, כל הנשמה תהללויה, הללויה, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהללויה, הללויה, הללויה, ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן. וברוך שם כבודו לעולם, ומלא כבודו את כל הארץ, אמן ואמן.
We rise top of 101.
ויברך דוד את אדוני לעיני כל חכמיו, ויאמר דוד, ברוך. אתה הוא אדוני האלוהים, אשר בחרת באברהם והוצאת מאור כסדים ושמת שמו אברהם, ומצאת את לבבו נאמן לפניך, וכלות ליבו הברית לתת את ארץ הכנענית. והיה מכת לפניהם, ויברו את תוכם ביבשה, את רודפיכם ישלח צבים סולות, כמו אבן במים עזים. ויושיע אדוני ביום ההוא את ישראל מיד. וירם קרן לימו, וירא ישראל את היד הגדולה, אשר עשה אדוני במצרים, ויראו העם את אדוני, ויאמינו באדוני ובמשה עבדו. אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני, ויאמרו לאמור השירה. כי לאדוני המלוכה מושל בגויים, ועלו מושים בהר ציון לשפוט את הרסף, והייתה לאדוני המלוכה, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We are seated. We continue on 104.
נשמת כל חי, תברך את שמך אדוני אלוהינו ברוח ובשר. נהלל נשבחך ונפארך, ונברך את שם קודשך כאמור, לדוד ברכי נפשי את אדוני, בכל קרבי את שם קודשו. האל בתעצומות עוזך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורתך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא.
Service continues, middle of page 105.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו. בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל, לקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים. יתגדע ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד דברה קירותי וימלך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעולמי עולמי. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקדושה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. הכל יודוך והכל ישבחוך.
Continue our way down the bottom of 107, getting ready to sing together on 108.
אין כרך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס פלטך גואלנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה גדלו בטובו מלא עולם דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו. מיכאל חיית הקודש ונהדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות בושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נאה זיום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים באימה רצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמות צלה ורינה, לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח הוראה והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבט נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים באופנים בחיות הקודש, לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים. תתברך צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים וכולם עושים במה וביראה רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול. להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ונעימה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנשאים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, לאל ברוך נעימות ייתנו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהר לאורו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהר לאורו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהר לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תחננו תלמדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין, ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך, והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלה. באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Continue down 112 silently and into 113.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת ויציב ונכון וקיים וישר. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת ודבריו חיים וקיימים. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם.
As we continue silently down 114, we'll be standing for the final 3 lines on 114 and then heading directly into our standing silent prayers of the Amidah, which begin on 115b.
תהילות לאל היום ברוך ומבורך, משה ובני ישראל, לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדי חינומך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
For those still davening, please continue as the rest of us are on 115B for the repetition.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot U'Mevi Goel Livnei B'neihem L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Fokedu Moshiach Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Metim Atah Rav LaHoshia Mechakel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Berofech Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al geburot umido melech melech memit umechayeh umatmiach Yeshua B'ne'eman atah lahachayov metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim.
Kedusha.
Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam Keshem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom Kakatuv ayad neviyecha V'kara zel zeh ve'amar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech kol haaretz kivodo. אז בקורש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנשאים לעומת רבים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך איי 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 מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים איי 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 ועינינו תראנה מלכותך כדבר המור ושירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמח משה במתנת, ישמח משה במתנת, ישמח משה במתנת, במתנת חלקו. כי עבד נאמן, כי עבד נאמן, כי עבד נאמן קראת לו. כי עבד נאמן, כי עבד נאמן, כי עבד נאמן קראת לו. ישמח משה במתנת, ישמח משה במתנת, ישמח משה במתנת, במתנת חלקו. כליל תפארת בראשו נתת, ביעמדו לפניך על הר סיני, ושני לוחות אבנים הוריד בידו, וכתוב בהם שמירת שבת. ישמח משה במתנת, ישמח משה במתנת, ישמח משה במתנת, במתנת חלקו. וכן כתוב בתורתך, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ולא נתתו אדוני אלוהינו לגויי הארצות, ולא הנחלתו מלכנו לעובדי פסילים, וגם במנוחתו לא ישכנו ערלים, כי לישראל עמך נתתו באהבה, לזרע יעקב אשר בם בחרת. עם מקדשי שביעי, כולם יספעו, ויתענגו מטובך. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה וראשית. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, Sabenu mituvecha v'samchenu b'yeshuatecha v'taher libenu v'avdecha be'emet v'hantilenu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava uvratzon Shabbat kodshecha v'yanuchu b'Yisrael mekadshei shemecha Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat V'tzei Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael b'tfilatam v'hashev et ha'avodah l'dvir peitecha u'tfilatam b'ahavat tekabel b'ratzon u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha v'techazena einenu b'shuvacha l'tzion b'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai ha'machazir shchinato l'tzion modim anachnu lach Hatov kilo chalu rachamecha v'hamerachem kilo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach v'al kulam yitbarach yitromam shimcha maltikenu tami le'olam va'ed v'chol hachayim yoducha sela v'halalu et shimcha be'emet ha'el yeshuatenu ve'ezratenu sela Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha u'lecha na'el lehodot Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, Baruchenu b'bracha meshuleshet b'Torah, hakatuva al yedei Moshe Avdecha, ha'amura mipi Aharon u'banav Kohanim, Am Kedoshecha ka'amor, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Sim shalom tova ubracha ba'olam sim shalom tova ubracha Chem v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha Baruchenu Avinu kulanu k'ech v'or panecha sim shalom tova ubracha ba'olam sim shalom tova ubracha Ki v'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat chaim b'ahavat chesed u'tzedaka uvracha v'rachamim b'chaim v'shalom sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam sim shalom tova uvracha V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Amen. 138.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד דברה כריתי, וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון ויומכון, וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה, ברכו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בימה ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל סלוטון ובלטהון, תכל ישראל, קודם אבוהון דיבישמיה וימרו, אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו, אמן.
Turn to page 72 for the Psalm for Shabbat.
היום יום שבת קודש. צדיק תמר יפרח כארז בבנון יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינום בסבב דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי אשר אדוני צורי צורי ולא עוולת בו.
Warner's Kaddish can be found on page 82 for those who are reciting today.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
ויעמד דברה קירתי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון ובימיכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי מיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Amen. Yishar kochech. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Welcome to Parashat Balak on the Shabbat, and also this Shabbat has a little special personal element today as we sort of from the Bima honor the service of 21 years of Michele Israel. As many will probably say later, sometimes we feel like the congregation was named after her, rather than sharing a common root, which we do. So we look forward to a few comments and words of appreciation at the end of the service. But today we're entering into the Parashat, which is a significant one and a serious one in so many ways and a complex one. It follows essentially the story of King Balak, who hires the Near Eastern prophet Balaam to curse the Israelites, and instead, through a series of events, that curse is interrupted and turned into blessing of some sort toward the end. And it's a complex portion that has many elements. I spoke about it the first day of my sermon on Yom Kippur this past year, and I just touch on one element of that at the moment, which is one of the many lines from the Parasha that sticks with me, is when Balaam tells King Balak, Ki merosh tsurim erenu umigvaot eshurenu hen am livadad yishkon uvagoyim lo yitchashav. As I see them from the mountaintops and I gaze on them, the Israelites, from the heights, theirs is a people that dwells apart, not reckoned among the nations. I feel that to be a Jew is to come to terms with our apartness. And the curses that have been laid against us are so interesting, partly not because we expect people to turn on Jews and try to curse them, but sometimes because they come from the unlikeliest of sources, because they don't recognize our apartness. We are lumped in with others. we defy categories in so many ways. And I don't say that lightly. I think when someone says we defy categories, they really should defy categories. And I think we do. We seem to be treated differently when it comes to communal moral judgment. Here we have, in the context of the Parashat, the Israelites were literally refugees who promised to only pass through the land without taking anything, but they were refused permission. And so they fought, and Israel prevailed, taking land. And interestingly, it's land that the Torah says that the Amorites had taken from the Moabites. Yet we are portrayed by King Balak as conquerors, and we are often portrayed as Israel as the conquerors of conquering a well-established kingdom. The language Balak uses is the anti-refugee jingoistic language that Pharaoh used, that they are too numerous and they are devouring too many of the resources of the land where they are dwelling. He doesn't say next to us, the king says next to me. And when we are, perhaps when we were the most slaughtered and hated people in the world, the immediate victim of the most unimaginable genocide, whose remnants are rejected by the countries of the world and they are returning to their ancestral homeland. We are labeled by the cursors of the world the quintessential settler colonialist conquerors. And in America, we're considered in many intersectional circles as too privileged to be persecuted, too white to be intersectional, and too much passing to deserve a voice. And I may seem like hyperbole, but it's in circles I dwell in, so that I know it from personal experience. It's interesting that a new book that has come out about Israel historically and in a political history of the relationship of Israel and America, the book argues, as I believe, that what is often referred to as the Zionist ideal of returning to Israel actually was really mostly just a product of America passing the anti-immigration laws of the early 1920s. Because we can see that those who were fleeing and refugees from Eastern Europe and from persecution and from the Cossacks and from the pogroms were by a very, very wide margin trying to come to North America and Europe. And they only end up going to Israel after the European nations, but especially America, shuts the gates in the early 1920s and establishes a very small quota for Jewish immigration at the time under the auspices and the language of the congressional record that Jews are slow to learn, will never be proper Americans, and are undesirable for this country. And yet here we are in the Parsha yet again, sort of being accused as a nation that has come to conquer and to take the resources of the land, and not understanding the context in which we move. It does feel like we are very much a people who dwell apart. And part of being Jewish is relating to our own apartness. We continue with the Torah Service. We're on page 138, and we invite up Naomi to lead us. I also invite up our ark openers this time to join me.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. הרחמים נתינת רצונה את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים.
And we may be seated. I'll ask our first Torah reader to come forward. We are going to be on page 899 in the Eitz Chaim. In other texts, we're in Numbers chapter 22, starting with verse 39. And it's a little tricky to find. You found it? I practiced for 10 minutes finding it. And Michael's like, it's right there in the middle of column. So thank you, Michael. We haven't even found it in the Eitz Chaim. Page 899, Bamidbar 22, verse 39, and our first holiday. V'azor v'yagim v'yoshia l'chafsum b'v'nomar amen. Ha'kovod l'neinu, nu'kavod l'Torah, v'chein krava, v'chein kirbi ta'amod. Malka bat Yaakov ha'kohen, v'idit, Baruch she'natan Torah l'Mosrel, b'kedushato, v'atem ha'vekim b'Adonai Elohechem chayim, u'lechem ha'ayom. Baruch Adonai HaBorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamid, V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Can you push the microphone over?
Vishalak lebil'am v'lasarim asher ito. Vahiba boker v'ika'ach v'alach et bil'am v'ya'alehu b'mot ha'al v'yar misham k'tzei ha'am v'yomer bil'am el ba'lach v'nei li v'nei shivat v'azeh shivat misbachod V'akein li bazeh shivat parim v'shivat elim v'ya'as balak asher diber bil'am v'ya'al balak u'bil'am parva'ayil b'mizbeach v'yomer bil'am lebalak hityatzeh al alatecha ve'elcha ulai Ikare Adonai likrati v'davar ma'yar eni kigadati lag v'yelek shefi v'ikar elhim el bil'am v'yomer elav achibat hamisbachod arachti v'al parva'ayil hamisbeach Vayasem Adonai daber b'fi bil'am vayomer shuv el balak v'kol tidaber.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet, V'chayei Olam Natan B'tochenu. Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yishar You got
Is
it.
that
Just stay up
okay?
right over there. No, you
Okay.
get to stay. We're allowing staying up these days.
Well,
Yeah. Ta'amod, 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 Maka, Batchaya, B'liev, Halevi.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Haborach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Just wait. No, I'm in the wrong place, that's why.
That'll do it.
מן הרם ינחני מלאך מואב מהרי קדם וחר לי יעקב ולכל זועם הישראל מה אקרוב לו כבועל ומה יסוב לו זעם אדוני כי מראש צורים ארנו ומגבעות אשורנו הן עם לבדד ישכון ובגויים לא יתחשב ממנף הר יעקב מספר את רוב ישראל תעמוד נפשי מות ישרים ותהי אחריתי כמוהו ויאמר בלק אל בלעם מה עשית לי לקחו אויבי לקחתיך והנה ברכת ברך ויען ויאמר הלא את אשר ישים אדוני בפי אותו אשמור לדבר.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natat b'torcheinu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. As Michele stays up, and we're going to say nice things about Michele later, but I'm hoping that she continues to be here for the second Aliyah, taking her place on the Bima as our Bat Levi. Our third Aliyah, we continue with the read. Ya'amod harav Ruven Meir Ben Chaim Mendel Uganessa Hashlishit.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'char banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. Verse 13.
ויאמר אליו בלק לך נא איתי אל מקום אחר אשר תראינו משם אפס קצהו תראה וכולו לא תראה וקבנו לי משם ויקחהו שדה צופים אל ראש הפסגה ויתן 7 מזבחות ויעל פר במזבח ויאמר בלק התייצב פה על עולתך ואנוכי אקרא ויקרא אדוני אל בלעם וישם דבר בפיו ויאמר שוב אל בלק בכה תדבר ויבוא אליו והנה ניצב על עולתו ושרי מואב איתו ויאמר לו בלק מה דיבר אדוני ויישא משלו ויאמר קום בלק ושמע האזינה עדי בנות ציפור לא איש אל יכזב ובן אדם ויתנחם ההוא אמר ולא יעשה ודיבר ולא יקימנה הנה ברך לקחתי וברך ולא אשיבנה לא הביט אבן ביעקב ולא ראה עמל בישראל אדוני אלוהיו עמו ותרועת מלך בו אל מוציאם ממצרים כתועפות רעים לו כי לא נחש ביעקב ולא קסם בישראל כעת יאמר ליעקב לישראל מפל אל אין עם כלבי יקום ובחרי יתנשא לא ישכב עד יאכל טרף ודם חללים ישתה ויאמר בלק אל בלעם, גם חוב לא תחובנו, גם ברך לא תברכנו. ויען בלעם ויאמר אל בלק, הלא דיברתי לך לאמור, כל אשר דבר אדוני אותו אעשה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת חיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. As Deborah passes the yad to Alex, we continue with our fourth aliyah. Ya'amod Yisrael ben Yaakov Leah, ha'aliyah ha'revi'it.
Baruch et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ויאמר בלק אל בלעם לכנה אקח אחיי אל מקום אחר אולי ישר בעיני האלוהים וקבלתו לי משם. ויקח בלק את בלעם ראש הפאור הנשקף על פני ישימון. ויאמר בלעם אל בלק בני לי בזה 7 מזבחות וכן לי בזה 7 פרים ו7 אלים. ויעש בלק אשר אמר בלעם ויעל פר ועיל
במזבח. Nice.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshua Koach. And we continue. We're going to be continuing with chapter 24. It can be found on 903 of the Eitz Chaim, and we're at our Chamishi, our fifth aliyah. Ta'amod. Saramaka. Babracha v'Yosef, ha'aliyah ha'chamishit.
Baruch et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayar Bilham ki tov b'einei Adonai levarech et Yisrael v'lo halach kafam b'fam likrat nefashim vayashet al midbar panav vayis'a Bilham et einav vayar et Yisrael shofen lishvatav v'tehi alav ruach Elohim vayis'a Michele v'yomar ne'um Bilham b'no v'or v'ne'um ha'geber shtum ha'in נאום שומע ימראל אשר מחזה שדי יחזה רבל גלוי עיניים מה טבו עליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל כי נחלים ניטעו כגנות עלי נהר כאוהלים נטע אדוני כארזים עלי מים איזו מים מדע על יהב וזרעו במים רבים וירום מהגג מלכו ותינשא מלכותו אל מוציאו ממצרים כתופות רעם לו יאכל גויים צרה בעצמותיהם יגרם וחיציו ימחץ קרב שכב קרי וכלבים יקיננו מברכך ברוך ואורך ארור ויחרף בלק אל בלעם ויספוק את כפיו ויאמר בלק אל בלעם לקוב אויבי קראתיך והנה ברכת ברך זה 3 פעמים ואתה ברח לך אל מקומך אמרתי כבד אכבדך והנה מנעך אדוני מכבוד ויאמר בלעם אל בלק הלא גם במלאכיך ששלחת אליי דיברתי לאמור אם ייתן לי בלק מלוא ביתו כסף וזהב לא אוכל לעבור פי אדוני לעשות טובה או רע מליבי אשר ידבר אדוני אותו אדבר.
יפה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yashar kocheh. Get to stay up here and goodbye, Naomi. We're heading into the Shishi, which is beginning on chapter 24, verse 14. Just want to point out, not to make Alex self-conscious, but I'm trying very hard to, is that I'm just gonna, Deborah, I just want to take off next summer. Every single Shabbat, like I find myself in the process of saying goodbyes, and I can't stand goodbyes. And that's why, Michele, you're not going anywhere. And Alex, I don't want you to go anywhere. So Alex is, I'm getting us ready for the goodbye. In a couple of weeks, Alex will be moving on to rabbinical school and joining his colleague Naomi there in Boston. I really, truly hope you decide to spend your weekends in lovely Ann Arbor. We love you on the Bima. No, really, I mean, this is, you're looking at the people who really love this stuff, and we can see that you do too, and we love it when you share it with us. So we are cherished the extra couple of Shabbatot we have with you, and we hope that you consider yourself a friend and a part of the family. So I just want to point out, as we listen to another Aliyah, we don't have too many left at this season. As we go to the next Aliyah, it's my honor to call up Jonathan at this time for the Shishi. Ya'amon. Yaakov ben Zev and Miriam, Ha'aliyah, Ha'shishit, and sorry, I should find your space. 14, it's, my right, it's V'ata Hineni.
You just got me all there.
So, well, wait, there he goes. There you go, Jonathan. Yep. Just ready to get the spot first.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'ata hini holech le'ami l'chayatzecha asher yaseh ha'amazeh. Asher yaseh ha'amazeh lemcha b'acharit ha'yamim.
Correct.
V'yisam shalo v'yomar ne'um b'lam b'no ve'or ne'um ha'geber shtum ha'ayin ne'um shomea imre'el ve'yodei adat elyon machazeh shadai yechazeh nafel u'galui einayim Ereinu v'lo atah ashurenu v'lo karov darach kochav mi'Yaakov v'kam shevet mi'Yisrael u'machat pa'atei Moav v'karkar kol b'nei Shet v'haya Edom Yeresha se'ir oivav v'Yisrael osechayu v'yered mi'Yaakov v'hevid sharid me'ir Vayard Amalek, Vaysam Shalom Amar, Reshit Goyim Amalek, Bacharito Ade Oved, Vayard Hakeni, Vaysam Shalom Amar, Eitan Moshevecha, Vasim Basela Kinecha, Kimi Yeleva Er Kain, Adma Ashur Tishbeka, Vaysam Shalom Vayomar, Oy Michye Misumo Ehel, Vasim Miad Kitim, Inu Ashur, Inu Ever, Vigamhu Ade Oved. Vayakom bilaham v'yelech v'yoshev limkomo v'gam malach halach l'darko.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata b'tolcheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yashar koach. You get to take Karen's place over there as Larry takes the spot, and we call up our Shvi'i. Ta'amon. Esther Badavram V'Sarah, Ha'aliyah Hashvi'it. We're continuing with chapter 25.
Baruch et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayashav Yisrael b'shitim, vayachal ha'am liznot el benot Moav, ותקראנה לעם וזבחי אלוהיהן, ויאכל העם וישתחוו לאלוהיהן, ויצמד ישראל לבעל פאור, ויהיו אף אדוני בישראל,
בישראל.
בישראל, ויאמר אדוני אל משה, קח את כל ראשי העם, והוקלתם לאדוני נגד השמש, וישוב חרן אף אדוני מישראל, ויאמר משה אל שבטי ישראל, שופטי ישראל, הרגו איש אנשיו הנצמדים לבעל פאור, והנה איש בני ישראל בא ויקרב אל אחיו, ויקרב אל אחיו את המדיינית לעיני משה ולעיני כל עדת בני ישראל, והם הבוכים פתח אוהל מועד, וירא פנחס בן אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן, ויקם מתוך העדה, ויקח רומח בידו, ויבוא אחר איש ישראל אל הקובה, וידקר את שניהם, את איש ישראל ואת האישה אל קבתה, ותצר המגפה מהבני ישראל, ויהיו המתים במגפה 24,000.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yishar kochech. As Naomi covers the scroll. We'll do our blessing for those who need healing. I invite Meg up with the very full list of everyone that we're praying for, and I'm going to ask her to hold on to the Torah while she reads the complete list. And I'm asking us just someone told me last week they really appreciated the reminder of how we're doing the Mishaberach. I'll remind you once more, which is that we're praying for a lot of people, and I think it's beautiful. So there's a list that we have that's many, many, many columns long. And I pray for these people every day myself because I've been asked to pray for them. And we've been asked to pray for them as community as well. And so Meg is holding on to the Torah and she includes all of those names in the blessing. But that also frees us up here to have you offer names. If you've already put a name on the list, please add it now, because it's like you saying, I'm here to remember this person. It's like putting kavanah immediately behind that tefillah. So please, if you've already given us a name, put it behind right now and say it out loud. You can also say yourself. And you might wonder why I add a few more names. There are a few more names who are members of the synagogue. They're not people we're praying for. Remember, they're not names of people that members have asked us to pray for, people they care about and they want to include in their prayers. It's they themselves, and they're asking their rabbi to pray for them. And so I want to make sure, because they are not here for the most part, that I can say their name. And for many of them who are streaming, because they're not able to be here with us, or it's a great challenge for them to be with us in person, they know I'm saying their name directly. And so that is how we do it at this time. So please include names at the appropriate time to add kavanah behind the tefillah. Misha berach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu yivarech v'yarpeh et hacholim et V'et Mayim Sher Bat Chaya Elisheva, David ben Ava Baruch Vibloria, Sehem Silver, Yehuda Aharon ben Eliezer Vitzipora, Miriam bat Ben Zion ve'Esther, Devora Aviva bat Yitzchak ve'Esther, Judith Elkin, Azrael shel Shlomit, Shalom Zev ben Moshe, Yefifia bat Yosef Yehudihit, Meir ben Hillel ve'Blum Abbas, Yudo Shlama ben Avram Yitzchak ve'Rochel, Ve'et kol hacholim b'kila kedosha hakadosh baruch hu yimalei rachamim aleihem lehachzikam rapotam v'yishlach lahem mehera refuah shlema min hashamayim refuat hanefesh urefuat haguf b'toch shachalei Yisrael Shabbat milizok v'frak rava lavo hashta b'agalav izman kari v'nomar Ana el ha'refa ana Allah Beharot lano amzivam Az titchazek v'titrape v'hayet alach Shivchat olam Yitgada v'yitgada shemeraba B'yamad yivrak yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon Uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael B'agalav izman kariv ve'imeru Yehesh meraba mevarach Li'alam ulam me'amaya Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'tromam v'naseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudesha le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yama v'imheru Amen. As Naomi gets her place in the scroll for verses 7 through 9 of the Maftir of chapter 25. Exactly. We should be either right at the bottom of the column or right at the top of the next one, right there.
Oh, there it is.
Yep, well, that's because I rolled it too far. And it is my honor to call you up. Ta'amod, or I should, we're slowly transitioning, so let me use this as an opportunity, if you don't, because you helped us last week. Na la'amod.
Naomi bat Yosef v'Tovalea.
Naomi bat Yosef v'Tovalea, hamaftira. Let me get my chumash out of your way. Naomi has allowed me to show her some of the tricks of the trade of the bima, so I'm showing her how you put your tikkun over the blessing so no one can find it.
Thank you, Rabbi. Very important. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron haKohen vayakom mitoch haydav vayikach romach biyado vayavo achar ish Yisrael el ha'kuva vayidkor et shnihem et ish Yisrael vet ha'isha el kavata ותעצר המגפה מעל בני ישראל. היו המתים במגפה 24,000.
Nicely done.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. I call upon our lifter and dresser, Ya'amdu, the Hagbahava, legally la. Please rise. Bezot HaTorah. Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomchem me'ushar. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomchem me'ushar. Derachecha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom. Derachecha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom. Yada da yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 da. Yada da 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 da. And we may be seated. The Haftarah can be found hopefully on page 915 of the Eitz Chaim. We are in Micha chapter 5, beginning with verse 6. I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just get my gear organized. Stand close to the microphone, he says. You'll be sorry. Parashat Balak introduces us to Bilam, this mixed up wannabe prophet, magician, maybe a little bit of a charlatan, who despite his worst intentions, manages to give us this most beautiful and humble blessing of Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov. How beautiful are the tents of Jacob, the dwellings of Israel. Bilam turns the typical notion of prophecy, the reluctant recipient modestly carrying God's message, on its head. Bilam goes looking for God's word and is a bit self-aggrandizing when he finally makes his pronouncement. The Haftarah picks up the theme, connecting to the Parsha by mentioning Balak and Bilam by name, by drawing on the thread of the image of the lion, and complicating the bluster we sometimes confuse with righteousness. We have the image of the remnant of Jacob as that sleeping lion, ready to reawaken and pounce on the enemy. But God says, not so fast, forcing the reckoning of what's left when the sacred pillars and cities are destroyed. God, of course, has the last word, literally and figuratively, reminding us that sometimes divine guidance is the opposite of bellicose or bombastic, but rather comes in quiet companionship and humble listening. What actually does God seek from you? To do justice, love goodness, and walk modestly with your God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nbiim tovim, v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah u'b'Moshe avdo, u'v'Yisrael amo, u'v'nbi'ei ha'emet v'atzedek. והיה שארית יעקב בקרב עמים רבים כטל מאת אדוני כרביבים עלי עשב אשר לא יקווה לאיש ולא ייחל לבני אדם. והיה שארית יעקב הגויים בקרב עמים רבים כאריה בהמות יער ככפיר בעדרי צאן אשר אם עבר ורמס וטרף ואין מציל. תרום ידך על צריך וכל אויביך יכרתו. והיה ביום ההוא נאום אדוני, והכרעתי סוסיך מקרבך, והעברתי מרכבותיך, והכרעתי הרי ארצך, והרסתי כל מבצריך, והכרעתי כשפים מידיך, ומעוננים לא יהיו לך. והכרעתי פסיליך ומצבותיך מקרבך, ולא תשתחווה עוד למעשה ידיך. ונטשתי אשריך מקרבך, והשמרתי עריך, ועשיתי באף ובחמא נוקם את הגויים אשר לא שמעו. שמעו נא את אשר אדוני אומר, ומרי ותרים, ותשמענה הגבעות קולך. שמעו הרים את ריב אדוני, והאיתנים מוסדי ארץ, כי ריב לאדוני עם עמו, ועם ישראל יתווכח. אני מה עשיתי לך ומה העליתיך, הנה הנביא, כי העליתיך מארץ מצרים, ומבית עבדים פדיתיך, ואשלח לפניך את משה, אהרון ומרים. אני אזכור נא מה יעץ בלק מלך מואב, ומה ענה אותו בלעם בן באור, מן השיטים עד הגלגל, למען דעת צדקות אדוני. כמה אקדים אדוני ייקח לאלוהים הרום, האקדמנו ועולות, העגלים בני שנה. הירצה אדוני באלפילי, ברבבות נחלי שמן, האתן בכורי פשעי, פרי בטני חטאת נפשי. יגיד לך אדם מה טוב, ומה אדוני דורש ממך, כי אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד, והצנע לכת עם אלוהיך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהים, נאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגיע ליבנו. על כיסו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדיש השם.
Shkuf. The service continues
Yes.
also with Naomi. We're on page 148 with Yukum Porkan.
Me again.
יקום פורקן מן שמיה.
As we continue on 148, I'm going to ask us again to read the second paragraph in English together. This is the time of the year when we renew our memberships in the congregation. And it's good to remember that there's this blessing we usually do silently that reminds us that our funds are part of our spirit, our ma'od that we donate toward the good services and the good, I don't just mean services on Friday night and Saturday, I mean the good acts of kindness, love, and mitzvah that we do at the synagogue. Let's read together. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless this entire congregation, together with all holy congregations, them, their sons and daughters, their families, and all that is theirs, along with those who unite to establish synagogues for prayer, those who enter them to pray, those who give funds for heat and light, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, bread to the wayfarer and charity to the poor, and all who devotedly involve themselves with the needs of this community, the land of Israel. May the Holy One reward them, remove sickness from them, heal them, and forgive their sins. May God bless them by making all their worthy endeavors prosper, as well as those of the entire people Israel. And let us say, Amen. Ask Naomi, can you finish it in Aramaic? Or it's okay.
That's cute, Rabbi.
So we will continue on page, pardon me,
151, yes?
151 for Ashrei. Thank you.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יללוך סלע. תהילה לדוד, ארומים ממך אלוהי המלך, וברך שמך לעולם ועד. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ולתורתו אין חקר. הדר כבודך, בדברי נפלותיך שיחה. זכר רב טובך יביאו, בצדקתך ירננו. טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו. כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, וגבורתך ידברו. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. עיני חולליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בטוב. צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו. רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם. תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, יברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה. יהללו את שם אדוני. Should I pause? יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו.
We remain standing for the prayer for our country on 148.
Our God and God of grace, we ask your blessing for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, for all who exercise judgment rights for God. Teach them insight from your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may ever abide in our midst.
Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony. Banish hatred and bigotry to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country.
May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your providence. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore.
Amen. Prayer for the state of Israel.
אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה בפרט חסדך, ותפוס עליה עצמך שומרך. ושלח אורך ויביטך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה, ותקריב עצה טובה בפניך. חזק את ידי מגיני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, ויעטרת ניצחון תעטרם. ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה. נאמר
Amen.
Amidah Shabbat Shemayim, rock and redeemer of the people of Israel. Bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shield it with your love. Spread over it the shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who do better. Deliver them. Crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. Let's say,
Amen. Prayer for peace.
And you see the day when war and death and bloodshed cease. Great peace will embrace the whole world.
Nation shall not threaten nation. Mankind will not again know war.
For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into this behavior to destroy. We have come to be pray
Compassionate God, bless the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion. I will rid the land of vicious beasts, and it shall not be ravaged by war. Amen. We may be seated. Shabbat Shalom. By the way, let me correct myself. The prayer for the community is not in Aramaic, it's in Hebrew. It's the prayer for the congregation that is in Aramaic and not Hebrew. I'm very conscious when I have a Hebrew instructor in front of me that at least I correct myself when I make a mistake. I'm going to try to keep my remarks short today so that, and I'm almost afraid they're going to come across as too simple. So you'll tell me afterward, was that too simple or not? But here it goes, as I skip the first 3 pages. Come on, I get credit for that, do I not? So, prophet hired to use the power of words to curse another people. What does it mean that he's a sorcerer? He's a prophet, he's a magician. And what does it mean to curse? One way of understanding the use of magic, the use of cursing, the use of sorcery, is to make happen through words that which to make happen in words that which you do not want to allow the natural course of events to unfold about. So you want to rush it. You want to make sure the consequence that you want happens, and you don't want to let the natural course of events unfold. I want to use that magic potion because I want that person to go to the prom with me, and I don't know if they like me or not, and they probably don't, knowing me, and so let me just get that magic potion, let me get a spell cast on them, and they'll go with me. You don't want to find out if they would have fallen in love with you or crush on you or be willing on its own. You won't want to leave it to chance. Now, God does curses, right? We know that. We're going to have to read a lot of them, and we've read them before. So you're like, wait, so what's God doing? But if you look at the curses that God does, they are really saying, if you do this, then the natural consequences will unfold in the other way. If you hoard all the wealth for yourselves and you let the poor go hungry with not fulfilling your commandments regarding them, the society will fall and the banking system will fall, the financial system will fall. If you ignore the laws involving the climate, then climate change will happen and you will lose your place on the good earth that God provided. So it's not a magical curse. It's a Jewish curse, which is you better be careful because in time, if you're not, it might happen. And if you study it, you'll probably find out it's scientifically accurate, right? So let the natural course of events take place. But we do want to rush things, right? We want to, I don't know about you, I certainly do. I want to rush love, I want to rush grief, right? Get to the end of it. I want to be able to say, I feel better now, right? I want to rush recovery. Right? 12 steps. I read 5 of them last night. I'm ready for number 7 right now. Right? We like to rush things. And so here, words are used to curse a people to rush it on behalf of King Balak. He wants to curse them to get, and he makes it sound like it's on principle, but we find out that he says himself, the real reason is so that I can slaughter them in battle. And so it's not so high-minded. He has very clear indication. He has very clear motive behind it. So we have an example of that around us. We all know it. I'm sure there are thousands of rabbis across the world mentioning it today besides me. It's almost too simple, which is using our language to like a tweet, to retweet something, to post something on social media, or to sign a petition and jump on the bandwagon of getting someone canceled because it sounds good. Wait a second. That I just read that how is it possible that we let someone be invited to our institution to speak, who blank? And you're like, oh my gosh, I share that incredulity. Let's deplatform that person. Let's get that person uninvited. I can't believe that person holds tenure at Harvard when I really like what they said in 3 of their academic papers, but that 4th academic paper just didn't align with my personal holy purposes and philosophies. So let's get their course canceled, right? So that we have a move to rush, to use words to effect an immediate change without things taking their natural course. And I think part of what we get out of the Parashat today is to show some restraint and to let things, what is the proper investigation of that accusation? What did the person really say in their academic paper, right? What really happened that people are rushing to pile on with a petition to say this person needs to be removed? I feel very fortunate that I was in a public school system when I was young, where I got to spend 6 years studying Latin. And it taught me many things that I love. And one of them was, I didn't understand the word scruple before. I used to hear my father use the word scruple in sermons, and I used to hear other people use it. And I thought scruples were your deepest held values, right? It's like, I would do that, but I've got scruples. So I was like, oh, scruples, like principles, they mean principles. So if you're laughing, you may know what the word actually means. So when I studied Latin and I was translating something from Plautus or something, I realized that a scruple is a pebble in your shoe. I've got scruples means I'm going to stop before I run in this direction. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to take my time and get that pebble out of my shoe before I continue on this path. And I think it's good reason why it seems to mean principles, because principles teach us when to stop, slow down. If you've ever professionally supervised someone or been professionally supervised, you usually know what's coming somewhere on the first page of either your self-evaluation or their evaluation of you, which is, have you ever thought of not sending that email and giving it 24 hours to marinate in your draft box before you click send? Have you ever did you ever realize that, at least in Google, because I'm in that universe, pardon me, when you, right next to the send button for an email, you can click the arrow and it gives you a second alternative option, which is schedule send. And you can schedule it to go out anytime you want. Next day, 2 days from now. I try to use that when my scruples remind me that maybe Michele Israel doesn't want to work at 11:30 p.m. at night, and maybe I should schedule send it for the next day, or maybe next day is not a day she's coming in, so maybe I want to schedule send it for the next day. How can we the tools are there to slow down and not rush. And so you have the donkey, and the donkey speaks. The man who has been given the power of God to speak and things come true is bested by an animal that is not given the faculty of speech. And to me, I don't just take it as a fable or as just as metaphorical or as just comical, but I feel like the universe speaks to us about slowing down before hitting, I like that, I'm retweeting it, I agree with that, I'm signing on to that. The universe invites us to pause. I find it, you'll tell me hopefully Kiddush, I find it in animals. Have you ever noticed that, like, I'm about to do something, but the dog needs a walk, right? Or I'm about to do something and the cat's meowing at me to interrupt me. And many times, not just when I'm about to engage in rushing something that I should be patient with, but in so many aspects of life, right? We have probably too many stories to list today, but I can't tell you how many shivas I've been where I'm watching behavior of the dog, and I know the dog misses its master, but specific behaviors around specific objects, around specific prayers that we're doing. For someone that I lost in my family over COVID, that her husband, she died, and the day that after she died, he was looking out his window in Chelsea, and 2 deer came up and they made love right in the backyard. And so I can tell you that it's not unusual to see deer in the backyard, but not too many come up to the bedroom window to have public displays of affection in that regard. And he sat there in the bedroom where he was missing his spouse and his partner, and feeling like something was being spoken by animals coming from the universe. So we know that in so many ways, the universe comes to speak with us. And I'd like to deepen our sense of God's presence, telling us to slow down and pay attention before we rush the things in our inner life, whether they're grief or hatred or self-righteousness or love or the needs to move forward too fast. want to share with you that the Matovu in the Nusach Ha'ari Sidor, it is preceded by one being required according to the Ari to say the following. You're in synagogue, you're about to do the Matovu for putting on your talit, and you say, V'ahavta l'reach kamocha. I take on the mitzvah of loving my fellow as myself. So why does the rabbi ask, why did that become a tradition of saying love your neighbor as yourself before we say ma tovu, how goodly are the tents of Jacob as we enter the synagogue? And it's because it's to remind us that as we enter into a space like the tents that Bilam looked at, we're all individually praying, but we're doing it together in an encampment. Remember that may we love our neighbors, ourselves, all of the people in the encampment, because even though our prayers are individual, our principles are sometimes individual, our righteousness is often coming from within. Nevertheless, we need to think larger than ourselves, give others the benefit of the doubt, and love our neighbors as ourselves. So may we all adopt more scheduled sins. May we all allow the natural processes to unfold without needing to rush them. May our principles be our scruples. May we love our neighbor before invoking the power of God to force something. Shabbat shalom. We continue the service with Musaf on page 155. Please rise.
Yitkara v'yitkara shemei rabba yoma divra kute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon v'yomechon ufchayed chol beit Yisrael b'gala v'zman karib v'yimeru amen yehi shmei rabba mevorach li'olam li'omei amaya yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha brichu leila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimeru amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah El Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei Bneihem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Foked Umoshiach Umagin Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Tagibor Leolam Adonai Mechayim Itim HaTorah V'Hoshia Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed Mechayim Itim B'Rachamim Rab Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem emunato b'shenei afar michamocha bal giburo umido melach melech meimit umechayem umatzmiach Yeshua b'ne'emanat halachayot metim Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hametim. Na'aritzecha v'na'akdishcha kesod tziyah sarfei kodesh hamakdishim shimcha b'kodesh kakatu v'yad neviyecha V'kara zel zevi'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai tzvot Melech haaretz Kivodo malei olam Misharatav sholim ze lazeh Aye mekom kvodo liumatam baruch yomeru baruch Adonai mimkomo. Mimkomo yifem barachamim v'yachonam hamiyachadim shemo erev avoker b'chol yom tamid pamayim b'yama shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hu Eloheinu Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu Hu Moshienu Hu Yashmenu Baruch Masheni Le'nei Kol Chai Liot Lachem Le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ברוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושפחך אלוהינו מפנינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני.
Those still davening, please continue as the rest of us are Kaddish Shama.
יתקרב יקרא שמי רבה, ויאמר דבר קראתי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ויומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ויומי יומיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילם עם כל ברכתה ושירתה ומשפחתה ונחמתה דמירם ויאמר ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותנו ובאותנו בכל ישראל, קודם ובאון דגשמיה ואמרו, אמן. יהי שלום רב מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו, amen.
Please rise for Alena. Or am I wrong? Sorry, and Kelohenu. Sorry. You know, that's what happens when you rush things. So, you know. Fortunately, the universe spoke to me and told me to slow down.
And Kelohenu, and Kelohenu, and Kelohenu, big Kelohenu, big Kelohenu. And Mike. Yano, Baruch Eloheinu, Ani Keloheinu, Baruch Eloheinu. Mashiach, Adonai, Gehenna. Zero, das, no zero. Aleinu l'shabeach v'adonai, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כבאי הרצון, ולא עשנו. שלא עשנו ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You may be seated. We'll be reciting the Mourner's Kaddish on page 184 in just a moment. Beth Israel congregation remembers this week Yortzites of, among others, Bertha Aronson, George Barahal, Matthias Berman, Samuel Gregory Bothman, Howard Breld, Samuel Brown, Isidore Cohen, Jack Cooper, Coleman Danziger, Faye Eisenberg-Gelman, Arthur Feldman, Bernard Feinberg, Patricia Fisher, Pearl Franzblau, Shirley Freed, Faye Glick, Aaliyah Glickman, Marvin Gordon, Irving Holman, Lita Hopkins, Fred Sroll Kaplan, Harry Kaufman, Joseph Kripke, Pauline Lieber, Rose Lightman, Naomi Lieberthal, Pauline Lauren, Rose Matthews, Cynthia Miller, Bertha Myron, Brina Morgenstern, Sam Moscow, Paul Neuser, Elaine Gluckman Popowitz, Reva Rice, Philip Roll, Jerry Sachs, Barry Salenfriend, Betty Schnee, Benjamin Veneer, Sandra Weiss, Richard Weldon, and Harris Wolfson. As we continue to say Kaddish for Elaine Stoller and Natalie Scher, Susan Feingold Schultz and Judith Cashton, Lorraine Sherman, Michael Adams, Leona Leon, Phyllis Werble, Vanchen Lessing, Carol Feinerman, Bruce Thal, David Thalman, Carol Amster, Gary Joseph Ullman, Paul Ernest Phillips, Leslie Garber Matthews, Alan Fisherman, Raisa Levinskaya, Alice Cohen, Toby Barben Rothhaus, Vivian Perlstein, Rick Morgenstern, Marty Lindenauer, and Bonnie Rosenberg, along with others for whom we're saying the Kaddish. For those reciting, please rise and recite with me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach pirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei omayim. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Dekudesha Richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'imru, v'hei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'alkol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'alkol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May their memories continue to bring blessings to this world. So, Michele, I'm going to share some words about you, and then I'm going to invite up Beth, and then Deborah, and then you. I know there are a lot of people wanting to speak, but we also know we had to limit it in some ways. But I hope others find a way of conveying their remarks to you. So, if you were a bat mitzvah, I would make you come up and stand with me. But I also want you to be comfortable, and I want to respect your makom, which is right there at the entrance of the aisle. So I want you to be in the place that's most comfortable to you. I know that I'm just going to say, wherever you tell me to go, Rabbi, I'll do it. I'll respect you. But so where should we ask Michele to be? Wherever she was. She is in her makom. I would think that is a lot of pressure to come into this world with the Hebrew name Malka, queen. And yet that is exactly the name that Michele bears. It's tough to be a queen in Judaism, right? Because the whole Torah is about the fact that most kings and queens think they get to do what they want, but not Jewish ones, right? Jewish ones are there to serve, put the needs of the community above their own, to study Torah in private, so they know the proper way to behave, and they become a moral dugma, they become an example to others. Michele, you truly live up to that name. And your parents, Leonard and Evan Lynn, truly had prophecy when they chose that name for you. More than anything, if I could only say one thing about you, it would be that you are my teacher by being a moral model. You are a moral exemplar for us on staff and for people in the synagogue. I wish people could know, talk about scruples, right? If you're processing something with Michele and you're like, Michele, can you just get this done? Or I just want this really quick, or we can just kind of do this. Michelle's, what's the proper way of doing this, right? Let's slow down. Let's do this according to the best principles that we have. Also in Judaism, being a queen or being a king, like I said, you don't get to make the laws, you study them. And so you understand not just the moral laws, but all of the laws of the universe. When you see me translate into English the word melech, if you see my translations of Jewish prayers, I always translate melech as lawmaker. God is the one that makes the laws. The universe operates according to laws. And you have such a sense of the order of things, the proper, the order that God has made in this universe. You understand numbers, you understand math, you understand priorities, you understand order. And for some people say, oh, when someone says to me, oh, that person has a gift for organization, that person has a gift for systemic thinking, I don't just think of that as a minor quality. I think of that as a precious Jewish virtue. When one understands how to organize, they understand the way things work, and they're exact about it, it truly is Torah. It is living Torah. And that is what you do. I don't want to cry myself, but one regret I have is that I didn't get to meet your parents, Leonard and Evelyn, because you not only come in with the name Malka, but you are a Bat Levi. And I think for many of us, the last 2 years, which have been so hard, it has brought into focus who serves the community and who is served, right? I don't think the word Levi ever meant as much to me in prior years. I had lots of things I could say as a rabbinical student or as a rabbi, but in the last 2 years, we realized, what does it mean to take your ego as the Levites do? They don't even kind of wear their own clothes, right? They put on a uniform, their name isn't important. They wear the title of I'm here to serve, and they serve. And people accept that service, often without taking an interest in the person behind it. You really have lived that at Beth Israel. You have made Beth Israel and its reputation far more important than your own, right? And that's a rare quality nowadays. I understand that to say that when Beth Israel is doing well, I'm doing well. When people compliment Beth Israel, they complimented me, but I don't want to, that's the behavior and values of a Levite, right? They don't have to remember it was me. They don't have to remember my name. They don't have to ask how I'm doing, but I asked how they're doing. And they walked out of the buildings, they walked out of the temple saying, someone cares about me. You are so loyal. You're loyal to us. You're loyal to the memory of your parents. You're loyal to the ways of Judaism and its values. You are a deeply loyal friend. I feel fortunate to count you among my friends. I hope that I continue to be the benefactor of your love and your loyalty. It's been an honor to serve with you, and that's why we're not letting you go. It's my honor to call Beth up at this time. You have to keep retiring so we can keep getting Beth up on the bima. First Ron and now.
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one to follow. Shabbat Shalom. I'm really happy that you all have come to join us on this very special day at Beth Israel. As the rabbi said, I am not on the beam very often. In fact, I've only done it once before, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to share some thoughts about Michele, who, as we know, is retiring after 21 years. Is that better? After 21 years of very dedicated service. Michele came to Beth Israel in the summer of 2001, and I met her when I started in 2006. I inherited a mostly paper-based system, but Michele taught me some tricks that stick with me to this day. When I struggle with how to organize something or how to get a grasp on a project, I can hear Michelle's phrase in my mind. There's a spreadsheet for that. I was skeptical at first. I hadn't done a whole lot with them in the past, but lo and behold, she was right. I have never known anyone who loves spreadsheets as much as she does. And I think about her every time I create a new one. Michele and I fell into a rhythm at the office. She was numbers, I was words, and it worked so well. We've joked about how apropos it was that at Beth Israel congregation, we had a Beth and an Israel in the office. It seemed like fate. We worked so closely together on so many different projects, membership renewals, high holidays, and fundraisers. I'm sure there are many times that we kept each other sane, or not, depending on the case. You haven't known stress until you've tried to prep for the high holidays. At the same time, a jackhammer is digging up the sidewalk right outside your window. Helpful isn't a big enough word to describe Michele, in all honesty. She has always helped whoever was in need without question or hesitation. She served under 2 executive directors, Elliot Sorkin and Lisa Beth Lobenthal, and one fill-in, myself. She's worked tirelessly for multiple iterations of the board. When I stepped into my new role, she patiently taught me the financial side of Beth Israel, going over budgets and projections, balance sheets, and profit loss statements. She's assisted the board as it worked on Beth Israel's financial health and future plans. If it was needed, she did it. One other benefit to having worked with Michele for as long as we have is that I also gained a dear friend. She has been there for me through life's up and downs, no matter what. She has watched my kids grow up and become adults. During the pandemic, she even got to become friends with my parents remotely while I stayed in Toledo to recover from surgery. I am so thankful for her gift of friendship. I want to add one last thought about Michele. At her heart, she is a teacher. It brings her joy. In her first career, she taught students. In her second career, she pretty much taught all of us on the staff. When I joined the staff as a self-described lapsed Presbyterian, I had a little bit of knowledge about Judaism. Michele took the time to explain phrases, holidays, customs, anything that I needed to know. She didn't have to, but that's just who she is, a teacher at heart. We have a few sayings around the synagogue, one of which is about Ron making people comfortable on the bima. My version of that is this: Michele made me comfortable at Beth Israel, and I'm so grateful to her. I'd like to invite Deborah Ball from the board for her remarks.
Yes.
Michele, I'm the last of the formal speakers to you. I see you back there. So much of what Rav Nadav said and what you have Kleenex. Okay, that's great. You want to go get it? Oh, you have some too.
We got it.
And what Beth said is so true. I know we share a background as math teachers, and we've promised each other that when we get through the thick and thin of now, and you maybe really retire, we might sit and talk a bit about what we have both done in our professional lives. But today is a day to honor you for all that you've given to Beth Israel. And you haven't shown very good skill at one thing, and that is retiring. So for all the other things you've received accolades for today, I'm really hoping that any support you might need to achieve this next goal that you have, we're all sadly willing to help you. But I will share that after having announced that you're retiring and attending a celebration that included honoring you, the next Monday you were back at work. So I just want everyone here to be witness to the fact that this is not one of your greatest skills, retiring. We wish you real luck at achieving this goal. We're grateful to you that you're continuing to support and to help us. We're grateful for all that you've done over the 21 years of your service. And in particular, as Beth said, all that it has taken for us to remain thriving, sustaining, and moving through the last 2.5 years that were challenging. You were so generous with the board, so patient with all of us who were struggling to figure out how together we would make it through this period. But that was nothing new after all the years that you've done that. Nothing can really completely express to you how much we've appreciated your service to the community and how much we wish for you a healthy, satisfying, and fulfilling next chapter once you do accomplish this next goal of retiring. Can you come up now at this point? I know your makom is to sit there, but we have something we would like to present to you. So on behalf of the congregation, it is my honor to present you a gift that we hope you will treasure and will help you to remember how much we love you, how much gratitude we have toward you for all of your service. This is something that we hope you will wear and think of us. We hope you'll love it, and as we love you. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Michele.
Well, here we go. I think it would have been easier if I had talked first. So, Shabbat Shalom. When I asked for advice on what to say today, it was suggested that I speak from the heart, always a wise decision. I was then asked if I would be able to get through my remarks without tears. No way. My tears will be sad as I adjust to no longer being a part of a wonderful staff and doing the work I enjoy, but happy because I realize that other opportunities for me to help and be involved at Beth Israel will exist. When I began my Beth Israel career in 2001, I joined a staff anchored by 4 dedicated and diverse people: Rabbi Daberson, Elliot Sorkin, Martha Olnick, and Ron Sussman. It is a tribute to them as well as to Beth Israel that they have had 20 to 30 plus years careers here. I learned a great deal from them and their commitment to the community. I have continued to work with dedicated staff, board members, and volunteers who have brought their diverse perspectives to projects that we shared. In 2006, Martha retired and Beth Jarvis joined the staff. Over the past 16 years, we have developed a truly special relationship. Her work ethic and commitment are admirable, and she excels as our Director of Operations. When Rabbi Daberson announced his plans to retire, the search began for a new senior rabbi. Rav Nadav was the perfect candidate to take on that role. He has brought his spirituality, caring nature, enthusiasm, devotion, and many other things to Beth Israel. It has been a pleasure to work with him. Rav Nadav also advocated to bring congregant Amanda Fisher, a professional caterer, to our staff as our kitchen coordinator. And we all know what a wise and delicious decision that was. In 2019, Sam Zielinski joined our staff. He began as the religious school assistant and was quickly brought to work in the main office, where he now serves as our administrative coordinator. Sam's wonderful personality and can-do attitude has been a tremendous asset. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic hit Beth Israel. A few days after our fantastic Purim celebration, we were locked down. The new normal was not a happy one. Due to the tireless efforts of Rav Nadav, the board, LB, Beth, and Sam to navigate us through these difficult times, our activities did not stop. Rav Nadav, Beth, Sam, along with the board, our board president, Deborah Ball, continue to work tirelessly to find new and innovative ways to keep our congregation active and vital during these uncertain times. With a smaller staff, each person took on a heavier load, becoming technology experts, maintenance and building engineers, protocol specialists, and doing whatever else was needed while keeping the congregation informed of what was going on. Our most recent staff additions, Heather Gale as Director of Youth Education and Meg Bernstein as Ritual Coordinator and Director of Engagement, are devoted to developing adaptive programming for all ages to keep the congregation vital and active. Beth Israel is a special place, and we should take pride in our accomplishments. Deborah Ball and the board have developed exciting plans for us to continue going from strength to strength. Thank you for your support, kindness. Beth Israel will remain in my heart.
I ask you to stay up here. I told you she was a moral example. I mean, she talked all about us when we're asking her to talk about her. You know, as the time goes forward, I think all of us should make an effort to find out more who you are. Some already have the gift of that friendship, and some have accepted the largesse of your concern for us. So I hope, and I'm going to support Deborah with this, which is that part of helping you to retire is all of us getting to know Michele Israel, not as a member of the staff, but as the incredible soul that she is. So that gives us a territory to explore as we move forward. Will you join me in Adon Olam to finish the service? And then as at the Kiddush, please make personal remarks to Michele. Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm going to ask Deborah to thank you. Here, thank you for reminding me. See, Naomi, it's really not easy. I forgot the announcements. So Michele, will you stand with me?
Okay.
And we'll have Deborah share a couple of the announcements. I'm going to ask you to stand.
Shabbat Shalom. Announcements are brief this week. Not because there's not a lot happening, but they're brief. Tot Shabbat will continue throughout the summer, August 6th and 20th. If you're not a tot or a parent of a tot, you still might go outside at some point. It's lovely to see our youngest members and people out there celebrating Shabbat. So go out there sometime and see. Talmud study begins again this Monday, and they're beginning a new section of Talmud, the tractate Bava Kama, and they're going to begin with a study of the question of the limitations of an individual's liability for injuries suffered by others, a very interesting topic. And Rabbi Daberson will at 3:45, Talmud study is at 4 o'clock on Mondays, at 3:45, because it's the beginning of a new section. Rabbi Daberson will offer an introduction to Talmud study at that time. And I think we've mentioned several times that if you have a teen who's going on an organized teen group trip this summer, they may qualify for a scholarship from Eli Ladin Israel Teen Scholarships, and you may speak to Beth about that. And finally, quite obviously, but it merits saying again, Mazel Tov to Michele Israel on her retirement for her 21 years of dedicated service.
No, it's
Well,
Beth.
Mazel Tov to Beth on her wonderful talk, and Mazel Tov to you on your retirement, and best wishes and all. And I agree with Rav Nadav, like as a member of the congregation, we'll continue to love and interact with you, not as a member of our staff. Please join us in the large social hall or outdoors under the tent as we celebrate a special kiddush in Michele's honor. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So stand with me, Adon Olam, page 187, and don't forget to finish strong. Adon Olam, Asher Let's do it. Shabbat Shalom and Mazal Tov. Kol hakavod. I don't know what God provided.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shalom. This is
That's right.
Shalom.
Well, TBD.
Yes.
Well, no. So there was a temporary meeting, and then I took very limited.
Okay.
Very
Yeah, but who's doing the visits that are not here? Yeah, like that. Remember staff meetings with